So welcome everybody to Reach Out, Spinal Cord Injuries BC Virtual Peer, and today I'm happy to present Christina Cassidy and Matthew Query. Is that right? No.
Yeah, Curie.
Curie.
I will answer to anything.
And they are researchers and part of this project called SCIRE, Spinal Cord Injury Research Evidence. And they are going to tell you all about it. Please take it away.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having us. So we have a bit of a slide presentation to go through first. I believe Terry circulated the website a little bit before, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, she has put it in the chat box. So if you want to look through it while we're chatting or anything like that, it's there. So yeah, I guess we'll start out with the slide presentation is just kind of an intro to what the project's about and tells you a little bit about how we made it and the background. So that'll provide some context. Then we'll show you a little bit of the website, just some features that you might not have seen if you've just stopped by for a couple minutes. And then at the end, and throughout, we'd like to discuss what you guys think, or if you have any kind of thoughts that come to mind, feel free to jump out. Okay, so let's just test the slide presentation first, and then if anyone can't see it, can you please let me know?
Tell us when you've got it up.
Funny, it didn't show up in my share screen thing. Just one moment.
Yeah. Technology always messes with you on the actual day. It just always happens. There we go.
Okay, so you guys can see?
Yep.
I can see.
Perfect.
Can
okay.
anyone not see? I'm taking that as a no.
Okay. Awesome. So I guess we'll just introduce ourselves first.
Sure.
So, well, actually, can we first just have everybody share whereabouts everyone's from? So I heard there was one from Alberta. Whereabouts is everyone else located?
Jim, you want to go first?
Victoria.
Okay.
Roderick?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm from Smithers.
Okay.
Lori?
Vancouver.
Okay.
Tom?
I'm in Richmond.
Okay.
Guy?
Guy's Edmonton.
Oh.
In Edmonton, yeah.
Gordon?
I'm from everywhere.
You're from where?
I'm from everywhere. I'm all over Canada, but tonight I'm in Surrey.
There you go. Awesome. I'm in North Vancouver.
Perfect. Okay, so do you want to introduce yourself first, Matt?
Sure. My name is Matthew Carey. I'm the SCIRE Professional Community Coordinator. So Christina and I both work out of the GF Strong Rehab Research Lab.
And I'm Christina Cassidy. I'm the coordinator of the SCIRE Community website, which is the new version that we're going to introduce to you today. Yeah, we both work out of GF Strong in Vancouver. And what else? I'm a physiotherapist by background. Yeah.
My background's actually in psychology, but I was born and raised in Vancouver, so maybe that makes me a little different.
And I'm also from Edmonton. So there we go. So I guess first we'll start out with introducing what the SCIRE project is. Is everybody so far familiar with it? Not so much? I see some heads being shaken. Okay, so I guess Matthew will start with, actually, so the biggest thing that we want to share with you today is that we now have 2 websites. So a lot of people are familiar with the SCIRE Professional website, which was originally called the SCIRE Project. So if you searched on Google and you were looking for something about research evidence, often that would be one of the things that comes up. So SCIRE Professional has been around for about 10 years or so, and it's been kind of focused on a clinical audience, so mostly for clinicians who work with people with spinal cord injuries, and it's really focused in academic language. So it involves some a group of scientists who do systematic reviews. So they basically assess the strength of evidence for a number of different, basically as many treatments as you can find for spinal cord injury. And then they put them online so that they can make it easier for other clinicians to guide their practice based on evidence. So it's kind of a way of bringing together all the evidence and helping clinicians be more research focused in how they practice. So on the right side, we have SCIRE Community, which is the new website that we launched in October of 2017. And this website's focused mostly for people in the community. So we're focusing this on people living with spinal cord injury, family members, caregivers, and we're expecting clinicians and others to use it as well because it's written in more simple language and doesn't require that you have quite as much of a scientific background. So this one's been launched recently and we are continuing to update it, but we don't have quite as much content as there is on the SCIRE Professional site yet. So Matthew's going to first talk about the background of the SCIRE Professional website.
Sure. So that's just a screenshot of our current front page of our SCIRE Professional website. As you can see, some of the users are growing, and we've had over 1.1 million hits over our time. And there's our live Twitter feed on the side, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I guess the origins of the project were just a realization of a lot of our clinicians and researchers in spinal cord injury that spinal cord injury requires a highly specialized treatment. Clinicians outside of a major rehab facilities may not see enough people with SCI to really develop any kind of treatment expertise. And clinicians are super busy and they may not have time to search the vast amount of literature that exists out there in the research world. So in 2006, the co-PIs of the SCIRE project, who are Dr. Janice Eng, who is our supervisor, and Dr. Bob Teasel, who works out of Western University in London, Ontario, they formed a partnership as well as with Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation, the Rick Hansen Institute, as well as their respective universities, UBC and Western. And the partnership really just involved a systematic review of multiple databases. So I don't know how familiar everyone is with these academic databases, but Medline, PubMed, CINAHL is a nursing database, MBASE is kind of a catch-all medical, and PsycInfo is primarily psychology-based. But just to identify and synthesize all the relevant literature in spinal cord injury that's been published from 1980 to the present. So trying to ensure that all the information that we were searching and finding and extracting were relevant, we had some exclusion criteria. So if less than half the reported population had a spinal cord injury, that was excluded. If there was no measurable outcome associated with the treatment and animal studies, those were excluded. And then unless there was no other supporting literature, studies with less than 3 participants were also excluded. So originally when the project started in 2006, we produced booklets and CDs of all of the studies and our information or whatever and sent them to major rehab centers, first in Canada and then in the United States and worldwide. But then in December 2009, we came more into the present and launched the SCIRE Project website at www.scireproject.com. And then we've gone through a couple iterations of the project. So like Christina mentioned, in October 2017, we added SCIRE Community. So the original SCIRE Project website was renamed SCIRE Professional. And in May 2018, we're starting our new project here and we're on SCIRE version 7.0. And really the intentions of the project are threefold. There are sort of pillars, is that the information remains current. So it's the most recent evidence that's available. We review everything on the site in 2-year cycles. So everything that's been published in the last 2 years should be available. We want to make sure everything's credible so that it's vetted by spinal cord injury experts, that's clinicians, researchers, all stakeholders, that the study includes at least 50% of people with spinal cord injury. We're up to now 100 authors sort of from all countries, and all the authors of our chapters and our outcome measures and people that review all the literature are made up of interdisciplinary teams. So primarily clinicians and research from countries worldwide. We've published widely. There's over 75 peer-reviewed published articles in journals, and we've been to a bunch of conferences and done over 150 conference presentations. We want to make sure that the information is comprehensive. So some of the most popular pages on our website are the outcome measures. So these are, things like your Berg balance test, your 6-minute walk test, your Braden scale for pressure injury, those kind of things. We want to make sure that those are validated specifically for people with spinal cord injury. We've got 35 plus chapters of rehab and acute evidence in spinal cord injury, and those primarily review the treatments that you'd want to see in good spinal cord injury care. And then we've gone into a few different ways to disseminate information. So we've produced some demonstration videos where we show how outcome measures are actually done in the clinic. We've produced some demonstration videos where clinicians talk about certain things that are particularly difficult or interesting as far as diagnosing and helping people with spinal cord injury. And then we've got downloadable toolkits and a bunch of other clinical resources on the website. And of course, it's available free online and accessible from all over the world. And like I said before, to date, we've had over 900,000 users worldwide access us from over 200 different countries. So we're really working on our reach and building a community, and we hope that we're going to continue to do that, and hope that we're reaching all the clinicians and researchers that are interested and maybe need this information. So I'll pass it over to Christina to talk about SCIRE Community.
Okay, so with kind of the long history and all of the content that they've created on SCIRE, they did notice that a lot of the people who were visiting the website were not clinicians, but people living with spinal cord injury or caregivers would go there because they had questions. But often the language and how things were written out might not be the most appropriate for everybody who doesn't have a scientific background, because it does comment a lot about research methods, and it includes a lot of information that I think even a lot of clinicians probably would find a little bit challenging to interpret.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the reason that we've started this new website called SCIRE Community. One of the other reasons is that we've heard from a number of people that when you go online to seek information, it can be difficult to find information that's credible. A lot of people say that when they go online, the only information they might find might be in someone's story that they read in a forum, for example. And there's definitely a place for that type of information, but sometimes it can lead to information that's not really based on science, but becoming kind of a part of the norm. Do we want to talk a little bit about where everybody tends to find information online right now? Like if you were to go and seek answers to questions about a health issue that you might have, where would you typically go?
Does anyone want to answer that?
I think my concern in that area would be for my general practitioner, and I may be his only patient with a spinal cord injury.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm close by to GF Strong and still relate with the outpatient services, he can contact them. But would the SCIRE website be of assistance to someone who's treating a SCI long term?
Yeah, that's an excellent comment. And certainly the SCIRE professional website, which Matthew was just introducing, would be somewhere that often clinicians who don't work that frequently with people with spinal cord injuries, it is a place that they do go for information. So it's certainly a resource that they could use to find out, for example, whether there is evidence to treat, pain with certain medications, if it's outside of what they tend to see every day. So absolutely, yeah, that's a good point. And so you're saying that you would tend to go to your GP or your clinician for information first?
If I go to my GP with an issue that I think might be related to spinal cord, Well, and for this positive example, a concrete example, changes in bowel routine
Mhm.
have become an issue over the last couple of decades. And more recently, it's quite a bit different than it used to be. And the nutrition and the digestion and those kinds of things are pretty general for the general population. And there's lots of salesmanship and advertising around this being the ideal product or that being the ideal product. But through a webinar that Terry hosted, we brought on a SCI. What was that gal's name, Terry?
Yeah, Bonnie. She works at GF there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not Bonnie. I'm thinking of the woman who wrote the
The
nutrition book,
Joanne. Yeah.
because she relates it most specifically to the neurogenic issues
Mhm.
inside a body which is quadriplegic or
Mhm.
paraplegic.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's one of the things that we've kind of identified as well, is that there is kind of a lot of information about certain conditions, but it's often not specific to spinal cord injury. So if you go and find information about, on WebMD or something like that, what should I do if I have constipation? It's not quite the same as somebody who has a neurogenic bowel dysfunction as somebody in the general population. So that's certainly one of the problems that we're trying to address with this website.
Okay.
Did anybody else have a, sorry, Matthew, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to add that I'm hoping that SCIRE Community is really going to help, like you mentioned, around going to your GP and them you're the only spinal cord injury patient that they have, so they're not familiar with the specific requirements of treating bowel routines, etc., for someone with spinal cord injury. So I'm hoping that some of the downloadable resources on SCIRE Community are really going to help. Just as an FYI, some of our team is involved currently with the Paralyzed Veterans of America Association in doing the searching and data extraction for their next set of guidelines, which is bowel. We've done a lot of talking with Bonnie Venables, etc., on how there's art and science to it, but what the science really says and what's really important about establishing bowel routines and continuing to monitor those kinds of things. So we're excited about that kind of work, but we really hope that the situation that you mentioned around going to your GP and them not really knowing anything about the specifics of spinal cord injury and neurogenic bowel dysfunction will gradually be alleviated, where we can make these resources available to them. We actually have some case studies in the back of the SCIRE Project website that we're hoping to develop into continuing medical education content. So GPs would be logging on and getting their CME credits and whatnot through our website. So I totally hear what you're saying, and we're hoping to address that as best we can.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on where you go to seek out information? So say you were somebody who is more interested in seeking online. What kind of websites would you visit? Any thoughts, anyone?
I would go to Google and then sort by date to see what's current.
Okay. And what kind of, so if you did, for example, you got a search and it came up with like news stories or like forums or other things like that, is there like a preference where you think that the information might be more relevant to you or better quality?
Well, not really a preference, but I mean, I'm pretty good at filtering stuff out. So I can get fairly specific in my search criteria. Okay,
excellent. And then you think that you're going by what's most current is probably going to be what's going to be most relevant to you. Awesome. Interesting. So
can I say something, Christian? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to share. I'm probably like embarrassed to admit this, but not that I would ever do this if I had a health issue, so to speak. Like I would probably go to my doctor as well, at least get the ball rolling there. But for questions like, what suppository do people use, or some information about catheters, or, how do people do this if I'm looking to like change something up, Facebook So I'm part of a whole bunch of Facebook groups.
Mhm.
And so I'll just put it out to a whole bunch of different Facebook groups that are specific to people with spinal cord injury. And
So you'll ask a question and people will respond?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
sometimes, and I see lots of people do that, but yeah, it's obvious, especially, I don't know, I feel pretty lucky to live here. We get a lot of education. So maybe in some different countries that don't have the same education, I'm like, really? Like, that's what your recommendation is? It's quite shocking.
Yeah, and I don't think that's embarrassing at all. I think that's a very common place where people do seek information. And I think there's certainly a place for that, right? Like, for example, no matter how much of the literature you read, you're not going to be able to find information about, every brand of medication that somebody has tried, for example, or something like that. And there is definitely a nuance, and evidence doesn't speak to everything. Unfortunately, all the questions we have can't be answered with research studies, especially after spinal cord injury, because there's unfortunately lack of literature in a lot of things. So
and sometimes it's a little difficult to decipher too, because in the research studies they use the technical term of the medication rather than the brand names. So that's harder to really determine what it is you might want to use. So when you are looking at Facebook groups, it's a totally valid way to find information, but it does end up being a little bit trial and error. This worked for me, almost like going to a Yelp review for restaurants kind of thing. Some people like it, some people didn't. So it can be a bit hit or miss, but super common.
Yeah, and like, I'm sorry, in the red shirt, what's your name again?
That's Jim.
Jim. Okay, sorry. I think I see everybody's face, but I don't see their name. So sorry about that. As Jim was saying, like, he's kind of developed a bit of a ability to sift through things and interpret the information, which it sounds like is what you do as well, which I think is an important thing, because there's certainly a place for it. It has to be kind of taken in context and interpreted with what we do know from facts. So yeah, that's great.
Jump in here. It's Roderick.
Hi, Roger.
Hi. In recognizing from the comments of Jim and Terry, I'm way behind the curve on trying to access stuff online. I would really like to be able to connect with other people with incomplete, and I guess I don't know how to go about finding a Facebook group that is incomplete cervical spinal cord injuries. So Terry, if you're able to instruct me on that sometime later, that would be great. And Jim, you obviously have perfected the art of refining searches, which is something that I really struggle with, and specifically with the professional SCIRE, because I'm a physician and should be able to understand the language, like most primary care physicians. Prior to my injury, I knew almost nothing about a spinal cord injury, other than the absolute basics. And I guess, in an attempt to get back to my old life as much as I could, I've focused on my work rather than on educating myself about my own condition. I have tried going on to SCIRE Professional, but I'm not an efficient searcher, and I just don't. I guess I'm not finding the stuff that would be helpful to me. So yeah.
Okay. Thanks for those comments, Roger.
Is it okay? I mean, I'm not really part of the group. I'm only here as a guest tonight, but I wanted to ask a question concerning your information, if that was okay. Being someone who uses the internet on a day-to-day basis for searching for information, and also putting out, if I don't know something, I sometimes ask questions online and get information from other people and other resources. How easy is it to search your particular online resource using Google? Can you go in and do a search from Google straight into the information you're using, or that's available?
You can. So our search function on both of our websites is based on a Google search function. So the algorithms and all the things they try to find are based on a keyword searching.
Uh-huh.
So you want to put in the keywords that you're looking for. And if you're not finding exactly what you want right away, you might want to try a slightly different keyword.
Okay, so I'm just curious to know whether if the likes of who have we got here, Jim, and when he's doing his searches, for example, when he brings up the information, will the SCIRE information come at the top of the list, or are you trying to make it so it's available more readily rather than appearing further down?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working all the time to make sure that our stuff does appear at the top of the list, and there's a lot of web stuff that goes on behind the scenes, like keywords, alt text, SEO, etc. But that's all just web speak for really just making sure that Google can find you.
Because I tend to find when I'm doing searches for information, and you can do searches, you sometimes have to take the information you get with a pinch of salt, because some of the stuff out there, somebody just puts it out there just for the fun of it. But you do find that there is really good, sources of information. You just need to make sure that it's promoted enough so that it appears at the top of the list of results when you get them back.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I think some of the less credible sites or less credible information that you can find, maybe they don't spend as much time on the science of the information and spend more time in getting onto the first page of your inbox.
Exactly.
But we realize that that's super important for us to do as well. So we're working on that all the time. Mostly if you Google something, our websites come up in the first 1 or 2 pages. But like I said, we're working on it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that I think Roderick makes a good point. There's not a lot out there for people with incomplete spinal cord injuries. Mm-hmm. I know Canadian Paraplegic Association National had a booklet for incomplete spinal cord injuries, but that's pretty outdated now. So if SCIRE is doing anything for incomplete injuries and having that separated out, mm-hmm. very helpful.
Absolutely. So what we always do when we're reviewing the research is we detail who the population is. And I mentioned a little bit briefly earlier that the population had to be at least 50% spinal cord. Not all research studies have the numbers of folks showing up where they can divide the groups into complete and incomplete and see, who responds differently to what. But when they do provide that information, that's always useful because we do know that everything responds a little bit differently. And like you said about the booklets, that's one of the reasons we went away from CDs and printed information, because it just gets outdated too quickly. Whereas on our website, we've gone to what we call an asynchronous updating schedule. So we used to do everything over 2 years and then upload it all at once. Now, as soon as we get new information, we upload it, change it, and put it back up on the website. So we're trying to be responsive to those kinds of needs and make sure that everything is current. And like you said, in terms of complete and incomplete, yeah, when researchers report it, we report that too.
Can I jump in there one more time again, just to ask you, if the information is coming from a source other than a web page, for example, PDF files, will they get searched as well?
They will get searched as well.
I just wanted to make sure if that was the case.
I'm not sure, but I know on both of our sites, all of the information that is in PDF content is also on the website.
That's correct.
So you will find the website for sure.
That's correct.
Or you'll find the content.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll link specifically to the PDF unless you put in like handout or something like that.
Yeah, it'll usually link to the web page as far as I know, but anytime we make a change to the web page, we make a change to the PDF and re-upload it so that the web page and the PDF are both the same information.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you,
just
everyone.
Wondering if in the search function, is there a way of, I guess, rather than just doing keywords, which say if you enter in there incomplete and cervical, you get every place where those are mentioned as opposed to the reports where that's the main topic? Is there a way to search for cervical incomplete where it is
the main focus of any?
So you're thinking of like being able to specify the search only to a certain group of individuals?
Yeah, or maybe clicking on like an advanced search type thing with Google where you can add filters, etc. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess again, if there was a filter that said that, search for main topic,
Right.
including these keywords, as
Yeah.
opposed to just search for these words, because
Yeah.
if you get too many hits for everything where there's incomplete mentioned and cervical mentioned.
So I'll get Christina to correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, we have basic Google search functions on both of our websites. So if the keywords come up on any particular page, then all those pages will come up and you'd be in a position to be sifting through. If you wanted to refine that in any way, you would add another keyword to find what you were looking for. So incomplete cervical pressure injuries, as opposed to just incomplete cervical, because incomplete cervical will come up on any number of pages. On the SCIRE professional website, we've got easily 1,500 pages of content.
Right.
So if you said cervical, for example, you'd get a lot of hits. So
Right.
you want to be as refined as possible. So probably you want to try a couple different searches to see if you're getting what you want.
So it would be, you'd put incomplete cervical in quotation in order to block those together, so you don't get incomplete and cervical
Correct.
separately.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in again here. Sorry about this, but if the SCIRE community site is existing, does that mean that is there going to be people there who, if someone's doing a search for this sort of information, could they put a posting up there just to ask where the location of this or where the best information is on your website, maybe?
Oh, you're talking more like a forum, like if there was
something like that. I don't know.
Oh,
if
okay.
that sort of thing.
No, we don't have that type of availability right now. There is there's just a contact us form that a user could potentially use in that case. We don't have the same issue as the SCIRE project, where we have so much content that people can't sift through it yet. We're working on it. But and our information tends to be a little bit provide less specific information regarding each study. So you probably, if you were to write incomplete cervical in the web search, I'm not quite sure what you would get, but I'm gonna have a look and see. I don't know if there's a different way that we might organize information. That's a good point, certainly, where people would want to be able to sift information based on what's relevant to them. Our topics so far, and I'll go through and explain this in a couple minutes. Our topics so far are fairly general, so we don't typically get into a lot of detail. For example, this drug was tested in these different populations, and this is what they found in each group. That's kind of what is included in the professional site that Matthew was discussing. They have breakdowns and tables that include all the information about every study that was included. With our site, it's more general, and it's focused just kind of on what the overall burden of evidence is for each treatment, for example. So why don't I actually, I'll go through a couple of my slides and explain a little bit about what this community site is about, and we can come back to the searching thing, because I think it's an interesting point, and I do agree that the way that our searching, I don't know if you guys have tried searching it and that's kind of what you found. I think probably Roderick, you gave it a search.
Yeah, I guess I'm exploring more the SCIRE professional.
Yeah, and sometimes it can come up with quite a lot of information. So why don't I go through this now, and then we can kind of come back to those types of functions and how you can find the right information at the end. Okay, so based on what Matthew was talking about and what we were just talking about where you can go to search out information for yourself. So for example, we had the suggestion of going to a physician, going to a health professional for information, which is certainly a really good place. Terry mentioned going on a social type site and asking questions of your peers. And then a lot of other people said they go to Google, but it's kind of hit or miss, and you have to be quite aware of what you're looking at. So all of these things are kind of played into one of the reasons that we created SCIRE Community, which is basically trying to take the same type of research-based information that is on the SCIRE Professional website that Matthew just introduced, and put it in a format that's a little bit easier for people who don't have a science background. Because I think even Roderick was mentioning that even as a physician, it isn't easy to interpret evidence because, you know, research is a lot different than clinical practice, and a lot of clinicians find this as well, that it takes us an entire kind of specialty area to be able to interpret evidence accurately, and there's always disagreement even among researchers. So that's kind of one of the bases for why we're doing the SCIRE Community website now. Okay.
I'm glad that point was raised because I think the experience of a physiatrist who's worked in rehab for extended time would have a gut feeling of the patients presenting issues, and from their experience draw on things that may not necessarily be research topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that there's some way of capturing that population with their information.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for adding that, because when we do talk about what evidence is, there's more than one kind, and research evidence is one type of evidence. And we tend to fall back on research evidence because it is the most rigorous form that we can kind of reliably say this is what they found. Of course, not always perfect, but consistently, research is kind of the one place that we can go and find an objective answer. But clinical experience, especially like an experienced physiatrist who's worked for years in a certain area, is going to have a lot of knowledge that kind of fits in and fills in kind of the areas that we don't know for research. And that's also considered a form of evidence. So it's important to kind of take that thing into, take all the different types of evidence and put them into context. And like Terry was mentioning, information from peers is a form of evidence as well. So it's just important that we can be able to interpret and not just take somebody's word from it that, you know, a certain treatment will work regardless, for example. So yeah, it's definitely an art and a science kind of thing for sure. And so with SCIRE Community, this is just our intro page here. But when we went through and did our content, we found that we couldn't just take the information from the SCIRE Professional website and put it on in a format that was easier to read or that explained things. Because there definitely were a lot of gaps that we knew that clinicians work within those gaps every day. So we do consult for the SCIRE Community website. Each one of our pages is reviewed by a clinical expert. And they kind of tell us, oh, well, we don't actually use any of these things in practice. Or, well, I might suggest this to my patient even though there's not really a lot of evidence that's been done in spinal cord injury. So we've taken some of their knowledge and expertise, and we've, by using them as clinical and expert reviewers at the end, we've been able to kind of fill in a little bit of some of that knowledge that they've gained. So yeah, thank you for that point. And I'll kind of show you what I mean in a couple minutes here. So SCIRE Community, sorry, the name was a little bit misleading. I think, Gordon, I'm not sure if you were thinking that it was the community aspect meant that it was a forum or somewhere that everybody
could
share.
That's what I take it, yeah.
Yeah, and I can see why you thought that. We originally planned to call it SCIRE for people living with spinal cord injury, but we had a bunch of focus groups and people said, we don't really like that. You know, we don't think you should say who it's for, but just say that it's about, you know, reaching out to everyone in the community besides health professionals. So that's kind of explains the name a little bit, even though it can be a little bit misleading, I guess. So thank you for clarifying that. So SCIRE Community provides information about spinal cord injury health topics, and it's written in everyday language. We also have a lot of glossary terms, which I'll show you in a little bit, which you can just kind of hover over to tell you about more technical terms, because those are incorporated as well. So again, this one's developed with people living with spinal cord injury, family members, friends, and the general public in mind. And it provides information and also brief summaries of what the research evidence is for different treatments on how well they work. So SCIRE Community is a relatively newer project, just been developed over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's been developed predominantly from our project team out of GeoStrong. And like I was just mentioning, our content starts out based on the systematic reviews from SCIRE Professional. So we take information about how strong the evidence is for certain treatments, and we translate it into pages which also provide a lot more of the background information. So they kind of explain the concept. So what exactly is neurogenic bowel? Why does it happen? Because unless you kind of have that background, it's a little bit harder to understand, oh, well, you know, this is why this treatment only works for people with this type of bowel dysfunction or something like that. So that's where we start. There's not always systematic review findings for everything that people want us to look at. So for example, when we asked our focus groups, what's really important for you? They said, oh, well, cannabis is important, which isn't included in SCIRE Professional. So in that case, we have to go and look through the research literature and then have things again reviewed by the clinical experts. So we did involve, I mentioned some focus groups, so we have involved community input along the way. We did have 3 focus group sessions through the development. So we wanted the website to suit the needs of the people who are actually going to be using it. So we did this through focus groups, and we did this at each stage in development. So we had people living with spinal cord injury, predominantly from Vancouver, but a couple of people from out of town. We had members of spinal cord injury community organizations like SCIBC, and some clinicians who participated in the focus groups. So they provided direction on everything. So they told us, we don't like the name that you've come up with, you know, we don't like how you organized all the information. It was interesting. We asked them if the information was written in language that was too complicated, and everybody said, no, it's fine. We're used to reading this kind of stuff. So that was kind of something interesting that we kind of learned from the process. So basically it informed at each stage of development, and we hope that in the end this makes it into something that's a little bit more useful for the community. So I'll show you a little bit, just walk you through a couple of the things that you might not have noticed if you've had a chance to look at it so far. Just one moment.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I opened up all the files and then it doesn't want to share them unless I reopen them. Okay.
You were too prepared.
Yeah, apparently I was one step too far ahead. Okay, how does it look? Can you see it?
Yep.
No?
I can see it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through a little bit of the features so you kind of have an idea for those of you who haven't had a chance to really have a look yet. So, just one second. So again, we've got our homepage kind of like the SCIRE Professional. So you can see that the sites are mirrored. They do have a little bit different colors. So in case you end up on the wrong site, you'll know which one you're on. And we just recently added these top buttons to help you easily get back and forth. Because a lot of people in our focus groups also said, oh, we're interested in looking at this information, but if I want to find more details, where should I look? So we want to make that one easily available. So we've got a live feed from Twitter. These are our news stories where we kind of tell you about what's new. So if you want to see what pages have been updated since you've last visited, that's where you can go. And then this area kind of shows the main areas of content that we've added in. So the About section is mostly an explanation about what the project's about. Gives you a background about who has actually been involved in this process and what the basis behind it is. Topics is the main area of original content that we've created for this version. It includes mostly question and answer information, and I'll show you that a little bit more in detail afterwards. Videos are, at this time, videos from the SCIRE professional site that are relevant to people living with spinal cord injuries also, so not just for clinicians, but we want to expand on that one moving forward. Handouts are the topics area content included in PDF version, so this is for people who want to share for clinicians, or for example, if you want to print it out and bring it to your doctor to show them what you know. Resources are links to external sites, and then of course linking back to the SCIRE professional. So in the About section, I'll just show you a couple things here. So our news stories, we're hoping to include a little bit more information about where we talk about what's new in spinal cord research and have some experts comment on that type of information. We also have kind of a unique feature of the website that you might not have noticed if you visited briefly, which is the glossary. So the glossary function is a really nice way of being able to include medical language, because I think it's important that everybody is aware of what the language is if you're going to talk about it with your doctor or look things up, for example. So these glossary terms, whenever they're written in the actual content, they'll come up with a little dotted underline, and you can hover over that and it will provide brief definition. So you can kind of just continue on reading without having to stop somewhere else. So I mentioned the video section a little bit. So these are more how-to videos that were mostly created by Matt's team at this point, but we want to expand on that moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Handouts again, just PDF versions. So if you were to wanted to share information or print out, that's where you can go. Or some people just prefer to read PDFs. Resources, of course, just educational links. So these are to more credible information. And then lastly, we'll come to the topics area. So these are kind of main areas of content right now. So right now we're focused pretty much entirely on health information. So for example, let's stop by the bowel health. So I think you guys had Bonnie Nybo as your host on the last session. So she was also our reviewer for this, this page and a couple of our other pages. She has amazing knowledge, so she's been an excellent resource for us, which I'm sure you guys learned last time. So for these type of pages, you'll see here kind of the information. Our focus groups told us that it's important that everything stays credible, so we can know when was it last updated, who actually reviewed it, and have that information right at the top here. So we've got kind of key points. So the main points throughout the article, because some of them can be a little bit long. And then we do go into all question and answer type information about this particular topic. So for example, for this one, this is the kind of information that we added in that it isn't included on this professional website, but we thought it is an important part of being able to understand, for example, understanding what's different after spinal cord injury. A lot of people don't have background on how the bowel works to begin with. So that's the kind of background information that's been added in on this site. So for that would be kind of a background type question. What changes? How do people tend to diagnose bowel changes? And we've got a lovely Bristol stools chart here. And then we get into a little bit more of what are the actual treatments that people use. So what is a bowel routine? What are the types of techniques that people tend to use as part of a bowel routine? What are the things that people need to know about? And this is that glossary function that I mentioned. So for example, if you're reading through this article, you're new to spinal cord injury and you don't know that much about all of the different potential symptoms you might have, and then you came across autonomic dysreflexia, because it's more of a technical term that people don't understand, there's kind of a hover over definition, so you can kind of look it up a little bit there. So that's kind of the types of content that we have right now. You'll also see that there's some information here. For example, there's weak evidence that this helps to move stool on the bowel. So this is where we've taken the summaries of research evidence and made them into a brief form so that they can kind of easily be communicated what the different strengths of evidence are. So for example, here we take the number of different categories that they have on SCIRE Professional and we put them into one. So all of SCIRE Professional's levels 3 to 5 are considered weak evidence on SCIRE Community, and that information is kind of included there just to give you a sense of whether, you know, oh, there's just one paper that's been done and it has 5 people in it, for example. That's a lot different than there's been 3 large randomized control trials with hundreds of people involved. So that's kind of an important part of being able to take apart whether or not something is an important statement that will make you decide whether or not you're going to use it, for example. So this is kind of one of the areas that we've had a little, I guess, the most controversy about whether or not people find it interesting, whether they find it useful, and whether or not it really has a place on this website. So I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about that. So that's kind of like the main types of things that we have to offer on this website. I'll just tell you a little bit about, or I'll just show you the other types of topics that we have information on. And this is kind of constantly being expanded on. So we do have a couple in the works that should be coming up soon, which is sexual health, walking, and what's the other one? I'll have to get back to you on that one.
I remember what you're working
Yeah. So this is the kind of information that we have now. So very health-centered. For example, you guys were talking about whether or not we'd be able to kind of sift these things into what's relevant to people with incomplete and complete spinal cord injury, for example. And a lot of these topics probably, for example, you know, if you looked at depression, it's a little bit harder to kind of put those into 2 categories. So I don't know if you find a lot if you did search in that method through this way. Yeah. So let me just finish.
But it would be definitely different if you're talking about mobility and that kind of
Yeah, mobility and things like that. There would be more charts and tables and things like that. So I'll just finish up here with my slide presentation.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, are you back on the slides?
Yep.
Okay, so basically how you can use this website, or how we're hoping people will use it, to learn about things relevant to spinal cord injury, so health topics, to learn about treatments you've heard about but are considering trying. So for example, if you heard about acupuncture, you read it on a forum, and then you'd have somewhere that you could go and look and find out what the research says. A couple people in our group said that they use it predominantly to share with others because they feel that they know how to care for themselves in all the ways that they need right now. So they'd use it to provide information, for example, to a new caregiver or something like that who doesn't understand spinal cord injury very clearly. And lastly, to learn about spinal cord injury research, because I think being able to know which information is relevant to you and which information is credible is probably the first step as far as not trusting information that's not as valid. Yeah, and I think we just wanted to thank our sponsors too. So these are the people who have supported the SCIRE community and the SCIRE project website so far. And we also have a lot of social media feeds. Mm-hmm. So if you do enjoy following those, that's where we mostly update our content. So you can find our new information there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Terry, did you want to
awesome.
Open up to any particular areas of discussion to start
Yeah,
out?
well, I mean, does anyone, Christina, can you not view your screen there anymore?
Is it being? Okay.
You just have to stop sharing. Yep, there you go. And so does anyone have any sort of comments off or feedback that they'd like to give Christina and Matthew, just sort of?
Sure.
Yeah.
Roderick here. So it looks to me like SCIRE Community would be effective as a replacement for that massive binder that they gave us in GF Strong when I was there in 2010, which really was it was impossible to access, and it wasn't up to date or anything. Is it anticipated that that's going to be incorporated into the newly diagnosed spinal cord injuries in GF?
I believe actually they are currently revamping that.
Yeah.
They're in process. I think the spinal cord injury clinical educator from GF and actually members of Spinal Cord Injury BC, I think, are working on a new manual. So I think that will probably have a little bit more local information. So our website is intended to appeal to kind of a wider global audience. So we don't include things like, oh, which resources would be in Vancouver, for example. I live in Surrey, where can I find a caregiver? Things like that, which probably would be included in their type of manual. So yeah. I think ideally we're hoping that people who are in acute or care or who are in rehab, that they or their caregivers or their family members would be able to use this resource at that point to answer their questions, for example, about bowel care and things like that. Mm-hmm. So there certainly will be overlap, and thank you for noticing that, because we're actually planning on seeing if some inpatients find it useful as part of our evaluation coming up. So
it's a really interesting point. So Karen Anzai is the clinical educator at GF Strong. You guys probably know her, but she was involved in the development of this project, and we talked about that at the beginning. Would one be a replacement for the other? And basically what Christina mentioned was around, there's so much local knowledge and local resources that people like SCIRE BC and our local clinical educators can provide, that we really view them as companion pieces. So we wanted to provide information that was, more globally applicable to all kinds of different populations, etc., but not so much providing the local information, which I think SCIBC and the clinical educators at the hospital are a lot better in a position to provide. So yeah, it's a really interesting point. We talked about it throughout the development of this project, and like I said, Karen Anzai is heavily involved in both. So yeah, we ended up kind of viewing them as companion pieces, if that makes sense.
No, I guess if she's involved in both, she will coordinate the overlap on it. But yeah, it's your thought to introduce it to some of the acute people in GF to let them have a look at it. I think they will find it. I would have found it extremely useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that was one of the questions that I did wonder what you guys thought, was if you had a website like this available to you. Maybe some people were in the hospital before you had smartphones. But I think a lot of people have them now in rehab and in acute care. But I wondered, we're not quite sure about how much people would use a website like this in those phases of recovery. Of course, there's always the concern of maybe people don't have the right adaptive technology yet and things like that, to be able to use their technology in those ways. What are your thoughts? Does anyone have any, if thinking back, would something like this have appealed to you, or would it have seem like too much information, too hard to use, anything like that?
It's Guy. It would have appealed to me personally when I was injured back in 1980. As paper books, flipping through the pages was a nightmare in itself.
Yeah.
So if we would have the technology, just an aside, we in Alberta put together good to know websites, and SCIRE is one of those. So it's that are given out to the new injuries on basically a piece of paper with good to know websites. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what we do to share the site.
Yeah, and you find that that's a helpful resource to provide websites to your peers or to people in hospital, and they tend to use
and then they use it at their own discretion, I guess.
Thank you.
I know for me, when I think about like 22 years ago, I did not go to any single education session. I was not interested in learning anything beyond what was happening just with myself and how to deal with that. So I probably, to be honest with you, wouldn't use it. However, that being said, maybe if it was in a digital format, because yes, we got that like book that was, I don't even know how thick, binder, door stopper that I never opened. And part of it is like, especially when you're a quad, it is physically hard to turn pages. So maybe if they did have something like that, I would have been more, I mean, I would use it now more than I would have back then, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we're hoping too that
Robert, you got some action at your house.
Oh, you can tell that's, how do you know? Because, yeah, I get it. Yeah, this is right downtown, and but you know, I'm hearing what you're saying here, and I think it's a godsend, this website, anything like this website, because when a person's initially beset by their barriers, we need encouragement, and we need to know that there's a wealth of resource, and that's what you're providing here. And it's such a comfort to see that there are answers, and there are answers, and you've thoroughly vetted the answers that are there, and that's, I think, crucial. It, like I say, it's just so encouraging.
Thank you for that comment.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just had one comment to ask, or a question to ask more than anything. Is the coming from a computer background, is the website accessible using tablets and iPads and things?
Yeah, so it is, there's a word for that. You probably know.
Accessible, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it adapts to the device.
Okay.
Responsive.
Responsive, I think is the word, yeah. So yeah, it does take on a different format so that all the content does show on mobile, because actually, I think probably that's more common. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays?
Yeah. So you'll see if you try it on a tablet or a phone or whatever, what happens is the content stacks. So you end up scrolling down, but it's not as wide in its presentation. But that was a real concern, and we wanted to make sure that both websites were revamped and they're accessible at a 2.0 level now, which is apparently a decent enough standard as far as governments, et cetera, are concerned. Mm-hmm. We know that some people require some additional adaptive technology to use websites, et cetera. But yeah, it's accessible and responsive as much as we can have it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It may be a bit of a trivial suggestion, but I wear a drug allergy medal around my neck so that if something untoward happens, there's information available. Aside from maybe getting a tattoo with SCIRE on it and referring the medical people to take a look and go there to get the answers to help them. Is there anything on SCIBC that I can print out as a card to give to healthcare people like GPs as well as home support people?
That's interesting. So you're thinking like sort of like the idea of how a lot of people have autonomic dysreflexia, emergency cards, or sepsis emergency cards and things like that. Oh, that's an interesting thought. We hadn't gotten that far, actually. So you're thinking of it as being a place that you could refer your practitioner so they could understand more about spinal cord injury. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, we hadn't gotten there. There are a couple other really good websites actually for primary care physicians. They're both out of Canada. One is called Actionable Nuggets. It's based out of Nuggets. Like chicken nuggets.
Gold nuggets.
Yeah. It's just provides little bits of information that are relevant to spinal cord injury care that's intended just for general practitioners.
Yeah.
So that's a good resource for them. And there's another one called, I think it's called Caring for Persons with Spinal Cord Injury. And it's also intended for, I think that one's from Ottawa, and it's also meant for primary care practitioners.
Those would be good to have on the little handout card.
Yeah, actually we might need to, I don't know if we're linked to those, so we should include those as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So the Actionable Nuggets site was developed through the CMA, and it's specifically for information for doctors. I don't think they have as broad
No, they're
content
kind of
as we
intended,
have.
I guess the term nuggets is supposed to be that they can just sit at their desktop and quickly find out information like what autonomic dysreflexia is, for example, or something like that, or what the main treatments are. But yeah, it certainly provides a different type of information. Yeah. But thank you for suggesting that. We hadn't really thought there.
Yeah,
so
we could put cards and stuff on the website, make them downloadable.
Yeah.
We could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else there have anything to say open? Or I know Christina came prepared with some specific questions, so.
Sorry, I'm making a note quick. Downloadable cards.
Could you guys also maybe type those websites in the chat box as well?
Sure.
Because they'll be handy when I do the newsletter on this topic.
So we talked a little bit about whether or not you guys would have used it initially. And we talked about where you typically go for information online. So I guess, I mean, obviously, probably none of you guys have had a chance to look at the website before now. So you probably haven't had a chance to go through, I know Terry has, gone through and searched for something that wasn't available yet, which we're, expanding on as we go further. But I wondered about what type of topics. So this is one that kind of never gets old for us, is what else would you want to see? So from a content perspective, so not just like, let's just stick right now with, what written information, what topics would you want to learn more information about? So we have three kind of that are moving on forward. So let's count these ones out as well. So sexual health, walking, and wheelchairs and seating. Those are the three that will be kind of coming up soon. But is there any particular treatment or topic area besides those maybe that you may have seen on the list that you think is particularly important for you, or you would go to a website like this to look at?
I can think of like some for me, which is, especially, I know I haven't actually searched your site for this, so I don't know, it may be already on there, so pardon me, but the latest technology or research that is being done, which is the epidural and transcutaneous stimulator, which has like, and obviously stem cells is also kind of up there as well, as far as looking at that. So how easy is it to find that? Is it like at the top of the list? Because, I'm sure you've got information about it, but.
Yeah, certainly epidural stim is one that's, and transcutaneous also, that people have mentioned to us before, for sure. And I think that one is really relevant right now. And I think there's a lot of, you see a lot of news stories. I've been on Twitter. I think I mentioned to you guys that we do we do some social media stuff now. But it's kind of surprising the way that the type of news stories that get retweeted and how they kind of misinterpret what the findings of the studies are often, and kind of really focus on something that's a little bit more sensationalistic. Yeah. So certainly I think that's a really interesting one, and I think a lot of people would be interested in that for sure.
Yeah, and I think sorry, Matthew.
I was just going to say, we talked a lot about this at the beginning too, is because some of the emergent technologies is some of the stuff that people want to know the most about, but it's also an area where the information is probably the least reliable. So it's a difficult chasm to span in that regard. We have found a couple credible sites which we're looking into, develop stuff based on those. I've been to a few talks with some of our surgeons, here in Vancouver, like your Brian Kwans, et cetera, that are kind of on the cutting edge. They themselves say, look, we're 5 years out from some real interesting breakthroughs here, but talking about it at this point is probably premature. You end up talking about like potential as opposed to what's actually, useful at this point in time. But yeah, it was a topic that we talked about a lot. Emergent technologies. So in the new version of SCIRE, which I mentioned, we're talking about coming up with an emergent technologies chapter that is addressing a lot of the science and what's available right now. So that's in the works, and I'm hoping that that'll come through. But yeah, your stem cells and your stem implants are topics that come up over and over.
Yeah, and I mean, not even just to find out credible information sometimes, but sometimes it's good to provide the info. I mean, people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and traveling around the world. And if there was somewhere that could, at least provide some valuable scientific information about, even just that, like, I don't know, seeing both sides of the argument, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
Have you thought of that kind of thing?
Absolutely. And I think that oftentimes we can't say this particular thing is working, but we can comment on where have we gotten so far. So, for example, even methylprednisone. When we put one up on neuroprotection recently, and it's more about explaining why it's so hard to interpret the evidence and why you need to use caution when you're thinking, when you're reading things or hearing other people's opinions. And I think that that's a valuable thing to say as well, is where are we at this point, and what's the background that we do know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking too, sorry if anybody wants to say something, is even one of the questions that, especially with inclusion-exclusion criteria in research studies, like as a participant in a research study, sometimes just simple things like, why am I excluded? Like, why is it this small group of people? Why aren't they looking at that kind of stuff?
That's interesting, because our clinicians at GF have told us that a lot of the patients that I work with are like, well, how come I can't be a part of this study? And it's important that people that they have a background about why clinical trials work the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
Why, just because I have an incomplete injury, am I excluded from like the majority of clinical trials?
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah. So very interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay. Terry has sent me a couple studies that technically I should have been eligible for, but I got turned down because I have cerebral palsy, I have ataxia, I have trach. This is all related to spinal cord injury. Maybe not the same as what you typically think, but it does. I'd like to have that brought up.
Okay.
Because it annoys me.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So you're kind of coming back again to the idea of how inclusion and exclusion criteria on studies can often preclude somebody from participating, even though it would be relevant to them, and the types of issues at play are the same. So kind of providing some, I guess, unfortunately, that the best we could do probably would be to explain and clarify why researchers think that way, as opposed to, of course, being able to change how they do things.
Yeah, or drug companies or whoever's involved.
Yeah, but would you say that type of information would be useful to you? Information about, why are the inclusion criteria so strict for a clinical trial, for example? Even though these things are relevant to me, I still got turned down. Should I be upset with the researchers, or is it just a part of their process? Things like that. Is that do you think that would be helpful to you, as opposed to being able to do anything about how they include or exclude people?
Well, yeah, because then I could argue it.
Okay. So it'd give you some background, so you'd be able to have a better conversation about it with the researchers. Yeah. Thank you. Terry, I don't know, are you still part of it? Are you still online?
On what, sorry?
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. Sorry, you were frozen for us.
Oh.
I wasn't sure if we were offline or you were offline.
No, I'm good.
Okay, sorry I interrupted somebody.
I was just saying that my computer acted up, and I hope I didn't interfere with everyone else's connection.
Oh, you probably had the same problem that we had.
Oh dear. My problem is a low battery, and I plugged it in and it just went zap.
Oh,
sorry.
All good now?
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on additional information? So we've got so far epidural stimulation, stem cells, information about how clinical trials are done, or I guess especially focusing on who can take part and why do they make it so specific. Mm-hmm. Are there any other thoughts on what else would be something that you'd like to see information that was included on this website?
I think go ahead, Lori.
Sorry. Travel.
Yeah.
So we do have some, SCIBC does have some videos that we have a YouTube site, and you could always link to that if you're looking for more educational resources. Mm-hmm. I do these ones and I record them, and they get put on our YouTube channel. There's also like some travel videos, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Travel is a really big issue, and I'm finding a lot of information on that online over the last little while. In fact, one of the PhD students in our lab is doing an accessibility study. There's a lot of apps that are being built on how to find accessible places, businesses, restaurants, hotels, etc. So I know there's a good deal of information out there that is pretty credible. So I would imagine SCIBC is in a really good position to link to a lot of that good stuff.
I think I mentioned to you guys already the SCIRE stuff. I was really interested in getting information about that. Do you have on there like tendon transfers and sort of therapies like that?
Not yet.
Yeah.
No. Actually, Shannon Sproul was just talking to me about that yesterday. She's like, we need to talk about tendon transfers. Yeah.
And like all the procedures for bladder augmentation, and there's so much bladder stuff right now that people are doing, Botox and
we have information about those things, just briefly in the bladder information, where it kind of just goes over like, what are the surgeries, but not in a lot of detail, but certainly I think there's definitely information about Botox for bladder. Yeah, on the Botox page.
But this is sort of an area of consternation from the researcher standpoint as well, is that there's not a lot of long-term information on what if you use catheters for a really long time, like what happens to you? That kind of research is really difficult to get funded. And I think more and more it's the kind of research that's going to be really, really important to understand. Are there any kind of, correlations with development of other disorders, etc.? We've had many discussions about that, and longitudinal research, stuff that happens over a long period of time, that's a fancy word for, just is really hard to get funded, and it takes a lot of good folks to get together and get on the same page, which not everybody always does. Yeah, I hear you.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of would like to also reiterate Roderick's sort of incomplete, perhaps that's an option to be able to have like a special section, maybe for incomplete specifically, because some of those things are really different. Yeah, anyways, we have a lot of people asking about that stuff in particular as well.
And actually, I was going to mention, I don't know, it just kind of popped into my mind with what Roderick was commenting on earlier about, seeking out information and specifically, connecting with somebody else who has an incomplete injury and where they can find information. I think it's not available to the public yet, but I know I think Toronto, they're making an app called SCI and Youth. Have you heard of this?
I was part of it. I was one of the health coaches.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit different. It's stopped right now.
Oh, it is?
I don't know what the development of the app is.
Yeah.
I was part of a study that was with them. Maybe it's something different, but.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's more of a pure.
Matching us with people and coaching them through 6 sessions.
Oh, okay. So maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, maybe it's different.
Okay. I might be wrong. I think whatever Dalton's app was.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I know
never mind about that. Well,
I will ask for you, Roderick, as well. Like, since Christina mentioned that, there could be perhaps something that I'm just not aware of, and I can ask John and his team over Shane or whatever.
Yeah. What about Ben's app, the one that he's developing?
That'd be great. Thank you. I mean, I think from the SCIRE point of view, there probably isn't, looking at the inclusion criteria for what you put in there, I guess incomplete injuries do not lend themselves to population-based type studies looking at comparing treatments, because there is no cohort. Every incomplete is so completely different from the next that you can't actually have a cohort that you treat one way and treat a control group. So I suspect there's not a lot of studies that meet the criteria.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a good point, and what you're saying is correct. I guess from a researcher's perspective, and I guess, we're almost acting like an information provider and putting up the information on the website. I kind of feel like that's not good enough either. Like, for example, this year on our new epidemiology chapter, on the SCIRE Professional website, we've never had any information on non-traumatic SCI. This version, we're putting in information on non-traumatic because, and the research that's out there on non-traumatic is nowhere near where the research is on traumatic, but you got to start somewhere. You have to put the information out there and, use what's credible. And sometimes we really hope that researchers are coming to our website as well, and it's spurring them on in terms of ideas and what new research studies they could do to be filling in the gaps. So you're 100% correct in what you say about some of the incompletes. It's harder to study, and the cohorts and the comparisons are the same.
I wonder if if you are looking to incorporating stuff specifically for incomplete, that could lighten up on the numbers needed, because I suspect that the significant information that will come out in spinal cord incompletes is actually looking at a single individual in great depth and actually trying to understand, well, what correlates with what, and that so having a criteria of a certain number in the study would preclude that kind of information from being included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And that's where a lot of good research actually starts, to be honest, is case reports that are written up by doctors or surgeons where they do go in depth on one person. And we don't ignore that. There actually are, despite what I was saying before about exclusion criteria, there are a bunch of N=1 studies, which is one person case report that actually appear on the website. But yeah,
good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're correct. That's, like I said, that's where a lot of good research starts, as a surgeon or a doctor or somebody just writing up their case and detailing it in general.
But that information won't necessarily get to your site because it has to be a larger group?
Okay, yes and no. So this is where we hedge our bets a little bit. So generally speaking, we do want to have larger numbers in the study because it tells you a little bit more rather than the idiosyncrasies of that particular case. That being said, in areas where there are no other studies, we publish case reports. And we include case reports in the information that we write up.
Gotcha.
Because there's no other information to draw from.
Are those case reports available on your scroll down menus?
Yeah, so they're not featured in our navigational study, but in the areas where they appear, so say you're in a chapter of, bladder or pressure injuries or something like that, if you go into the tables, you'll see that the N=1 studies, the case reports appear in the tables. So you would have to do a little bit of sifting, but they are there.
Good, thank you.
That's the only problem with having so much information.
Yeah, like I said, we've got
a lot of sifting.
Yeah, we've got over 1,500 pages of sites, so we talked a lot about how we can make it easier to navigate and better. But yeah, it's
1,500 sites.
Yeah,
or documents.
Over 1,500 pages per site, did you say?
We have over 1,500 pages on the professional site.
Okay.
So there's just a lot of information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any more questions there, Christina? What's
I have one question. Does SCIRE work hand in hand with the Rick Hansen registry and gathering data off the registry and looking at what they're collecting?
So SCIRE, we actually don't do any of the research ourselves. I believe that they were interested in maybe using our site to host some of their information for clinicians, just so that it was available to them at a place where they could easily find it in one place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because we just take information from research studies that already exist.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we don't actually collect any information from RISCR or from any of the databases for that type of information. We have included some statistics that were provided to us from the RISCR databases by the Rick Hansen Institute, because they are our granting partner. But no, we don't participate in collecting that. But maybe Matthew can speak to that a little bit.
I was just going to say it's a really interesting point, because we work so closely hand in hand with our HI. They're always trying to direct more people to sign up for RISCR in the registry, because the more people they have and the more people that enroll, the better the data is. So we've been involved a little bit in directing traffic over there, but because they want to be sure of the, maintaining the sanctity of their data, that the registry data and everything is maintained behind their firewalls. So we don't have access to it per se until they publish reports, which I think is appropriate. But we are partners, and we do try to steer folks to there to make sure they sign up for registries and make sure that clinicians and clinics and rehab facilities are accredited and go through some of their steps for maintaining accreditation. But so we benefit from the RISCR data after they publish reports, and we don't contribute to it per se, because we're synthesizing the research and putting out there what's publicly available. But we direct folks to there and make sure that people are signing up for RISCR in the registries and whatnot. And does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm just thinking any of the topic areas that they're asking in the RISCR surveys that coincide with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have a very close relationship with our HI. We work hand in hand on a lot of things. And it's just the sanctity of the data required that it's on their firewalls, and that they maintain the sanctity of the registry. And we help direct people there to sign up and that we get some of the information after they make it publicly available once it's de-anonymized and aggregated, etc.
You mean anonymized?
Anonymized. Yes, thank you. Anonymized.
De-anonymized.
Yeah, anonymized.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry, do we how long do we need for
Gordon?
Gordon, yeah, to speak about?
Gordon says he needs 5 minutes, but
Oh,
Why don't we hear from Gordon?
sure. Yeah.
ready? Are you good? Are you guys good? Do you need any?
Yeah. Unless anybody has any outstanding comments or thoughts that they would like to share.
Yeah, and you're more than welcome to share after the fact. If we have some more time tonight, that's fine. We'll stay on the line. But if not, you can always contact us on our website, on the contact forms, or directly by email.
We'll go there and do that. Thank you.
Oh, very good.
Thank you very much for listening, everyone.
Guy, say hi to Larry when you see him.
Very good.
I shall.
Gordon, would you like to, are you there? Are you?
I'm here.
Awesome.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let's see if we can get this going here. I'm hoping that. Can everybody see my PowerPoint presentation here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll be as quick as I can here. I'm on tonight to sort of try and publicise our programme at the Neil Squire Society. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of the Neil Squire Society. Some of you perhaps, some of you you're not. But what we've got is this is me. I thought I would just run through this. I look a lot more handsome in this photograph than I do at the moment, so that's why I don't have my webcam on. But what we've got is the Neil Squire Society has been around since 1984, and we've got a non-profit organisation, but we do quite a lot of work with people with disabilities to try and improve their computer skills. Now, what's going on here? This is going a bit faster than I really wanted it to. Okay, sorry about this. Okay, so what we've got, hold on, there we go, come on. Bit too fast here. Okay, so what we're trying to do just now is find some participants for our particular program called Distance Computer Comfort. The Neil Squire Society has been running the Computer Comfort program for a number of years here, and what we did was back in 2010 we set up the Distance Computer Comfort program, which the Computer Comfort program runs out of our office in Burnaby and also in our office in Regina. And what happens is we pair adults with disabilities up with volunteer computer tutors, and for a couple of hours a week for about 12 weeks we can teach them, the people who take part in the program, how to use computers and ultimately to become more comfortable using them. So back in 2010 we saw a sort of gap in the market where where people couldn't actually get into our centres to do the classes. We now use online classes in order to fill that particular gap. So at the moment we've got a pairing where the volunteer is on Salt Spring Island and the client's over in Ottawa. So as long as we can get them into the classroom at the online classroom at the same time, what we can do is we can run the same sort of classes we can using computer comfort classes themselves. Now I want to stress the fact that there's no fixed curriculum with this, because some of the people who've I've talked to in recent times, they've thought that there's we're going to sort of bombard them with things that they won't want to learn. My position is, if there is a particular topic that people want to learn to cover, what we can try and do is pair them up with someone. If they come to us with a list of things, we can pair them up with someone who's got those particular skills to actually teach that sort of thing. So sometimes it's fairly basic stuff, and then there's other people who are looking for some more advanced things. Some of the topics that we do cover are the likes of computer basics. So if you want to learn how to use file management on your computer, you wanted to learn a bit about how to set up your printer and printing and stuff like that. we operate on Windows and Macs, so we've got the ability to do that. We've also got the ability to teach people how to use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, Microsoft Office, up to a sort of intermediate level, depending on what sort of things you're looking for here. Also, we've got the ability to teach people how to use internet and social media. So, for example, if you wanted to learn how to search the internet more effectively, then we can teach them how to do that. This keeps fast forwarding for me just now. And if you're wanting to learn how to use Facebook and Twitter to keep in contact with your family elsewhere, you can do that as well, and also emails. My motto is, as far as the internet side is concerned, my motto is, as long as it's legal, we'll try and teach you how to do it. Okay, so that there are ways we can sort of fill those particular gaps there. We also have the ability to teach assistive technology. Now, this might not be applicable to everybody, but in relation to spinal cord injuries, quite a lot of people, if they've lost mobility in their hands properly, or you can't use a keyboard, then what we can do is teach people how to use a dictation program called Dragon. Now, I can't use Dragon myself. Because of my accent, it doesn't recognise what I say sometimes. I did find out fairly recently, if you swear at it, it brings up the help system, which is good. But we do have the capabilities of teaching people Dragon, and I can teach Dragon on a sort of one-to-one basis. We've also got, if people have got vision impairments, then we could use JAWS as a screen reading program, and we also teach people how to use Zoom Text, which is a screen magnification program as well. So if you're looking to find out how to use these particular programs, then we can teach people how to use that as well. So if you're interested, the reason that I'm on tonight is because we've got a bank of volunteers who are available at the moment, and I'm trying to sort of drum up a bit of interest to try and get some new people to take part. So if you are interested, then I'll leave you with my contact details, and you can also maybe contact Terry here. But you've got my telephone number there, and also my email address, and the address of the page on the Neil Squire website. But basically, what we will do is we'll provide you with the headset. It doesn't cost you anything to take part in the program. It doesn't cost you anything for the headset to take part, and you get to keep the headset once you've finished as well. So everything is free as far as the program's concerned, and you do get the ability at the end of it, hopefully, to do the things and develop the skills that you didn't have the ability to do before. Okay, so that's my little 5-minute pitch, I think. If there's anybody who's got any questions, but thank you for your time anyway, if there isn't anything, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Thank you, Gordon. One thing that you didn't mention, Gordon, is I know we have a partnership with our national virtual peer program that actually has funding to provide equipment to people. So did you want to mention that as well?
Okay, so we've got the virtual peer program that's ongoing just now, and one of the things that we do as part of it that they're offering is if there is particular bits of assistive technology that are needed to take part in these programs. So, for example, if you're having difficulties using, say, a mouse properly, or a keyboard or something like that, then they've got assistive technology available that will allow you to take part properly. So, and the fund is available for that. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I think is it the program going on until about July time? Is that right, Terry?
Yeah, I don't know when the actual date is, but it's coming up. And their last meeting I had, they're in a mad panic to spend this money. So
yes. So,
yeah.
So I'm quite open to taking people on if there is something that they want to teach, want to teach us. But what we tend to do is, as I said, if you come to us with a list of things that you would like to do, then what we can try and do is find a particular tutor that will have those particular skills and be able to pass the sort of tutoring on to you. It's not just in the BC area as well, as I said. We do right across the country. So we see our only barrier as being the sort of time zones. If we can get people into the rooms at the same time, then we can make magic things happen. And if you're wondering what sort of things we have done with the programme, we've managed to get both not just the clients, but also the volunteers back into work in college and university. We do when we've taken on a volunteer, for example, we've actually had a number of our participants have actually went on to volunteer on the programmes, which is actually quite good. But through the programme, some people have managed to get back into work. Some people have managed to get back into college and university. For the volunteers that take part, if you're part of the programme for about 4 weeks, then we'll give you a telephone work reference, and if you're part of the programme for 12 weeks, then we'll give you a written work reference as well. So it's a win-win situation for both the volunteers and the participants as well. Okay.
Awesome. All right, so anybody have some questions for either Gordon or Christina or Matt? Any feedback?
It's Guy. One question for Gordon. Is it regardless of what type of disability the person has?
Regardless, I can try and take on, it's a case-by-case basis, and if we can try and teach you, we will.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
There was good insight into the SCIRE potential.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was presented tonight, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you very much, Christina and Matt. That's very helpful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if nobody else has anything else to add, we can end.
I thought it was impressive, the website, from the point of the thread where a person who is clueless with their disability, they can reference that and they can follow this entire thread to know exactly where to go. For example, I was seeing the area that applies to me is walking and support with walking and mobility. And I saw a graphic of one of the clients standing, hanging onto rails with his legs with hardware on them. So you can see right there exactly what is being offered, what applies to you, and that's just rife right through the website I saw. And that is so impressive and so helpful. I thought I'd mention that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for the feedback. And I really want to encourage everybody to check it out more. Put it through its paces and let Christina and Matt know, because it's really created for us, right? So they don't know, what's missing from there if you don't tell them. So, yeah. And get in touch with Neil Squire, or if you know anybody that is interested, contact me and I can put them through to Gordon. Because it's a great program. So, and we need more people.
Great.
Awesome.
I gotta go find my supper now.
Oh,
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Matt and Christina.
Thank you, Terry.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.